Can you imagine it? You and your partner were being burned through by flames, hanging on by a thread. He was clearly holding the winning move in his hand, yet he calmly watched you breaking down. He toyed with you, making you follow his every command, before giving you the treasure. This was the ordeal Johnny was facing. The power of spin that Gyro taught Johnny was only the most basic beginner technique. What the spin truly pursued was infinite rotation. From now on, the phrase, "I can't do it," you're only allowed to say it 4 times. As Gyro spoke, he picked up a small stick and drew a rectangle on the ground. The ratio of its sides was 1 to 1.618. This was the legendary golden rectangle. This ratio had long been called the golden ratio. The pyramids of Egypt, the Parthenon, the statue of Venus, the painting of the Mona Lisa, those world-famous works of art all followed this proportion. That was why people found them beautiful. Johnny was confused. "We're both about to die. Can you make it quick? Why are you telling me all this?" Gyro ignored him and continued speaking on his own. "Ever since I was young, my father trained my palm to become a golden rectangle, and the golden rectangle has a special trait. If you add one side and draw a square inside it, the remaining smaller rectangle beside it will still be a golden rectangle. Draw another square inside it, and the remaining part will still keep the same ratio. If you keep drawing like this and connect the midpoints of the squares, you form a spiral that shrinks infinitely. This is the golden spin. Your nail bullets didn't move according to the golden ratio. That's why you felt a limit. Try making your nails rotate along the trajectory of the golden rectangle. If you succeed, you'll obtain power that extends infinitely." "What the fuck is this?" Johnny shouted. "I can't do it. This is way too hard. How could someone like me possibly pull that off?" Gyro simply said, "You just said I can't do it, didn't you?" Because Johnny moved too violently, the enemy's flames struck him again. This time, the fire burned from inside his blood vessels. His neck was burned straight through. Johnny screamed in agony, while Gyro remained calm and unhurried. "If you say, 'I can't do it' 3 more times, I'll give you this belt buckle." It was also forged according to the golden ratio. As long as you follow the engraved trajectory and use the spin, your nail bullets will become an infinite rotation. Johnny grew desperate. "If you've had something like that on you all along, why the hell didn't you show it to me from the start? I'm going to die if this keeps up. Just give it to me." Gyro's expression instantly turned stone cold. "No. Say, 'I can't do it' 3 more times. Only then will I hand it over." After saying that, Gyro picked up a stone beside him to replace his steel ball and released the spin again. The mud along the riverbank, under the influence of the rotation, curled up into a shield. But a stone was not perfectly spherical. Gyro's move could only last for a moment. Taking the opportunity, Johnny attacked. He used his nail bullets to shatter the pterosaur's spewing flames. Before the blaze could consume them, the two jumped into the river. During the earlier attack, Johnny had already tried hard to use the golden spin, but when he fired his nails, they were still the same as before. Now, temporarily out of danger, Johnny shouted again, "I can't do it. You've trained since you were a child. You practiced for years before mastering it, and you won't even show me that belt buckle. You won't even tell me the fucking key points. How the fuck am I supposed to use it? I can't do it. That's gotta be enough times, right?" Gyro replied, "That only counts as once. You need to say, 'I can't do it' 2 more times before I give it to you." Johnny's blood boiled with rage. "Bro, what's the point of insisting on this? We're about to die. This isn't the time to play games. The enemy must have anticipated we'd jump into the river. I have a feeling his next attack is coming any second." Gyro still told him, "You're short by 2 times. Say, 'I can't do it' 2 more times." Just as Johnny predicted, the enemy had long anticipated they would enter the water. A large number of small green creatures were already lined up across the river, waiting for them. From their bodies came waves of piercing sounds. What the hell is it now? Now, the two were stranded in the current, caught in a pincer attack. No matter how many of those creatures they tore through, more kept surging forth. To break this deadlock, they had to find the enemy user lurking deep within the cornfield and take him out with a long-range shot. Through the battle, Gyro finally cracked the enemy's secret. The attacks weren't slashes. They weren't flames. They were sound. Back at the cabin, those planks weren't being cut. They were merely emitting the sound of chopping. The pterosaurs just broadcasting the sound of burning. The enemy embeds sounds into objects, using them to transmit damage to his prey. Those dinosaurs are nothing more than vessels. This ability, it's a deadlier, evolved version of Koichi Hirose's Echoes Act 2. Since the enemy's ability is fixed sound, any extra sound would definitely interfere with his performance. He must be hiding in a relatively silent position. So, within dozens of meters, the quietest point must be where he is hiding. The user had yet to appear, but the small monsters on the riverbank had already moved. The slashing sounds from their bodies had already turned into tangible words, and they were transmitted through the river water. "There's no time." Gyro shouted for Johnny to blindly fire in any direction, but Johnny said, "Give me your belt buckle first. Let me see how to use the infinite spin." Gyro cut him off with a punch. "I said no means no. You haven't said I can't do it 4 times yet. That's the rule of the Zeppeli family. Break the rule, and you will definitely lose. This is our respect for lesson 4. What the hell is that? Why insist on such a weird rule?" Johnny let loose, firing wildly. This time, his spin finally began to show real effect. A gap was blasted straight through the dense cornfield. The mysterious figure hiding behind the stalks turned out to be the champion of the previous stage, the old man, Norisuke Higashikata. Though the nail bullets carried more weight this time, they were still miles away from the infinite spin Gyro had envisioned. Johnny cried out again, "I fucking can't do it!" Seeing that the attack was about to hit the two of them, Gyro plunged his whole body into the water. As he rotated both arms, the surrounding water gradually gathered into a vortex. Those tangible slashing sounds were guided by this force and shifted away from the two of them. He actually created a water sphere with the power of the spin and used it to neutralize the enemy's assault. After avoiding this round of attacks, Gyro exclaimed that this enemy was too terrifying. He finally understood the meaning of lining those monsters up in a single row. The sounds visible to the naked eye just now were merely a feint on the surface. At the point where sound waves intersected, the sound would be amplified. The amplified sounds were all invisible attacks. All of them were attacks he could not defend against. After saying that, Gyro fainted. His arms and legs had already been cleanly severed and floated up to the surface of the water. The river water was gradually dyed red with blood. Johnny could only let out a desperate scream. After the sound waves struck the opposite bank, they would bounce back and create a second impact. Johnny had only a few seconds left. Norisuke Higashikata, who had been hiding in the shadows, finally walked out. Johnny gritted his teeth in hatred, yet he could not think of any way to turn the situation around. Tears unwillingly streamed down his face. At that moment, a familiar figure appeared on the riverbank. It was Sandman. Johnny felt as if he had grabbed a lifeline. He desperately shouted at him, telling Sandman to go find hot pants. If Gyro was not treated immediately, he would soon bleed to death. Norisuke Higashikata also walked toward them, and as he walked, he said, "What are you two squatting in the river yelling about?" Before Johnny could react, Sandman dashed behind the old man in a single bound, pulled out a dagger, and stabbed him. Johnny was completely stunned. The situation before his eyes had caused his brain seized up. Sandman calmly walked to the riverbank, washed the blood off the blade, and said to Johnny, "Although the prize money was my original goal, negotiating directly with this country seems to make everything easier. The spine, the left arm, and the right eye. You have these 3 corpse parts, don't you?" Only then did Johnny understand. The enemy hiding in the shadows was not Norisuke Higashikata at all. The one who had joined forces with Dio was Sandman. After cleaning the knife, Sandman stood up and continued, "I want to buy back my ancestors' land. For that, I need a lot of money. I never intended to take your lives. If you hadn't resisted at the cabin and had obediently handed over the corpse parts, none of this trouble would have happened." As he spoke, Sandman had already slipped back into the cornfield. Those terrifying sound wave attacks once again rushed toward the two of them. There was no escape. Johnny had already begun to break down and cry. If Gyro had just given me the belt buckle from the start, we wouldn't have ended up like this. He threw a pile of explanations about the spin at me. How was I supposed to understand it? I fucking just can't do it. Suddenly, Johnny felt a shock in his heart. This was already the 4th time he had said, "I can't do it." He had fulfilled the requirement Gyro mentioned. The rule of the Zeppeli family? What exactly was the Zeppeli family trying to convey through this? If I act now, can I finally unleash the infinite spin? Gyro's ancestors and those world-famous artists, how did they know the golden ratio of 1 to 1.618? Who told them that this was the standard? If you simply measure it with a ruler, then it's nothing more than a copy. Logically speaking, there should be true golden rectangles somewhere in nature. If you can't see the golden ratio with your own eyes, then you can't perform the golden spin. Maybe that's what the Zeppeli family has been trying to convey all along. In other words, to achieve the infinite spin, you must follow your own instincts and treat what you see with your own eyes as the standard. At that moment, Johnny finally understood. On the battlefield, a few butterflies drifted slowly through the air. Their gently fluttering wings formed a perfect golden ratio in Johnny's eyes. Not only that, the grass, trees, and flowers along the roadside all began to appear as golden rectangles. When unleashing the golden spin, they were the perfect reference. For a moment, Johnny even saw the white mouse that had been burned into his memory. Even that mouse had become a perfect golden rectangle. It was time to break through. Johnny's nails began spinning at incredible speed. At the same time, his stand tusk completed its transformation and evolved into a new form. But something unexpected happened. When the nail bullet left his hand, it didn't shoot straight out like it usually did. Instead, the spinning nail whirled rapidly around his finger as if his finger had become a fully powered drill. The sonic attacks were getting closer. Without hesitation, Johnny fired the nail bullet. In an instant, the wide river erupted into towering waves, and Sandman's attack was completely neutralized. The power was unbelievable. Even Johnny himself was stunned. But this kind of nail bullet could only be fired once per finger. Normally, his nails would grow back instantly. This time, however, they didn't regenerate. Johnny fired another shot toward the cornfield. The nail bullet tore forward with overwhelming force, carving a deep trench straight through the field. Sandman, who had been hiding there, was forced back to the riverbank. Now the real fight began. Johnny struck first. He fired another golden spin. Sandman remained calm. He waved his dagger and slashed the air several times in front of him. The sound of the blade cutting through the air suddenly formed massive letters in midair. Johnny's powerful nail bullet was knocked aside by those letters. Johnny immediately fired 3 more shots in a row, but the result was exactly the same. All 3 nail bullets were easily deflected by Sandman. Meanwhile, the first nail bullet Johnny fired was beginning to lose its momentum. The slicing sounds caught in the vortex were slowly drifting back toward Johnny. It was over. His attacks couldn't break through Sandman's defense at all. The hope that had just ignited was turning into despair once again. Once he used up all 10 nails, he would be nothing more than a helpless victim again. Thinking that, Johnny looked over at Gyro helplessly. "I'm sorry, I can't do anything." But before he even finished speaking, the nail he had fired into the water earlier suddenly burst out of the river. It pierced one of the small creatures on the shore and dragged the approaching sonic attacks onto land with it. And that wasn't all. The nail bullets that Sandman had deflected earlier had pierced through tree trunks and burrowed into the ground. Sandman was standing nearby and didn't react in time. His right foot was instantly sliced open and blood began pouring from his thigh. 2 more nail bullets rushed toward him right after that. Sandman leapt into the air in a hurry, barely avoiding the attack. But he forgot one thing. There was still 1 nail bullet inside the tree trunk. That nail suddenly changed direction and spiraled toward him along the trunk. Sandman lost his balance and fell to the ground. Could the golden spin actually track its target automatically? Johnny raised his hand and fired several shots at the creatures on the shore. Sure enough, the nail bullets curved through the air and struck their targets. A single nail pierced through several creatures at once. Johnny fired a few more times. The creatures along the shore were completely wiped out. Even when the shots missed and left holes in the ground, the spinning nails still managed to damage the enemy. After getting back on his feet, Sandman finally released his stand. In a silent way, the opponent in front of him was no longer someone he could hold back against. "Sandman, you?" Johnny had just started speaking when Sandman interrupted him. "Sandman, that's just the name you white men misinterpreted. The correct translation is Soundman. In my language, my name means the one who plays sound. Johnny Joestar. I'll drive sound into your body with this dagger. With my ability to solidify sound, 1 strike is all it takes to tear you apart." At this moment, Johnny only had 2 nail bullets left. What came next would be the final round, a fight to the death. Before Johnny could make a move, Sandman suddenly leapt forward and lunged straight at him. If that punch landed head-on, Johnny's body would be shaken apart instantly. As the distance closed, Johnny pressed his palms together and fired a nail bullet. Sandman had no choice but to halt his attack and pulled out his dagger to defend himself. The sound waves deflected the nail bullet once more, sending it into the sand nearby. But the spin did not stop. The moment Sandman's feet touched the ground, the bullet hole began chasing after him. Sandman lost his balance and scrambled atop the sound waves to narrowly escape. Since it failed to hit its target, the bullet hole gradually shrank as it spun until it disappeared completely. "Down to your last nail, aren't you?" Sandman had already seen through Johnny's weakness. If these tracking nail bullets could be used endlessly, Johnny would have started firing wildly long ago, and the entire tracking process only lasted barely 8 seconds. As long as Sandman could endure Johnny's next attack, this battle would be his. Just then, Johnny fired another nail bullet. Sandman was ready to block it, but the nail bullet suddenly veered away from him and flew past his back. Did it miss? No, it was intentional. Why? In Sandman's brief moment of confusion, the nail bullet found its mark, a butterfly fluttering in midair. As the butterfly slowly fell, the spinning bullet hole transferred onto Sandman's body. Meanwhile, the butterfly that had been hit took flight once more, miraculously unscathed. Sandman let out a strangled cry of pain. The bullet hole crawled from his back toward his chest, heading straight for his heart. He clamped his hand over his chest with his hand and barely protected his heart, but the spinning hole shredded his right hand into pieces. Enduring the agony, Sandman still declared victory. "I knew it. Your bullet holes only last a few seconds. That was your last shot. Prepare yourself, Johnny. Victory is mine." But Johnny calmly replied, "You're wrong. The winners are us, not you." It turned out, Johnny's weapon wasn't just his nails. He still had the steel plate Gyro had left him. Johnny had already used his spinning nails to grind a small sphere from the plate during their earlier standoff. That tiny steel ball was already spinning at high speed. At this distance, anyone struck by it would die instantly. Johnny didn't want to kill. He tried to persuade Sandman to withdraw his stand and leave. But Sandman replied, "Run away? Do you think my in a silent way is slower than you?" Neither of them spoke again. At that moment, the air itself seemed frozen. In a flash, both of them moved at the same time. Before Sandman's fist could reach Johnny, the steel ball had already pierced through his throat. Behind him, his stand's head was blown apart as well. The winner of this duel was Johnny Joestar. Before collapsing, Sandman thought of his sister. He had joined the race and been dragged into this conflict. Even now, facing death, he felt no regret. The only thing he worried about was the sister he had left alone in his homeland. His final wish was simply that she could live happily. As the dagger slipped from his hand, Sandman finally breathed his last. Although the battle was won, Gyro's life might not be saved. With injuries this severe, it would only be a matter of time before Gyro died. At that moment, the white mouse named Danny appeared before Johnny again. Was it a hallucination? Suddenly, the sound of hoofbeats interrupted his thoughts. It was Hot Pants. She had found their horses on the other side of the river, so she came over to check what had happened. Seeing Johnny collapsed on the ground, Hot Pants immediately asked, "Those things weren't stolen, were they?" Johnny then noticed the crest on her bag. It was exactly the same emblem as the one Gyro carried. Before Johnny could speak, Hot Pants suddenly pinned him to the ground. Then she pulled the Saint's spine directly out of his body. Johnny panicked. "What are you doing?" Hot Pants replied, "Don't move. Struggling won't help you now." She then pulled out the Saint's left arm as well. When Johnny tried to speak again, Hot Pants struck the back of his head and knocked him unconscious. After securing the two corpse parts, a sudden wave of sorrow washed over Hot Pants. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Just who was this mysterious figure, posing as a man to enter the race? When she was about to leave, Johnny had already woken up. Hot Pants looked back and sighed. "So, you can move them." In truth, Johnny's paralyzed legs had already been healed. He simply hadn't realized it yet. Watching Hot Pants disappear into the distance, Johnny felt nothing but frustration. All the effort he had made so far had just been taken away. But at least Hot Pants had shown some decency. While Johnny was unconscious, she healed all the wounds on his body. She also reattached Gyro's severed limbs, and Norosuke Higashikata, who had been stabbed by Sandman, was healed as well. Just who was this woman? Once Gyro woke up, the two of them continued the race and rushed toward the finish line. In the end, they placed 4th and 5th. The top 3 were Pocoloco, Norosuke, Higashikata, and Hot Pants. With Diego's horse injured and failing to place for the second stage in a row, coupled with Sandman's sudden demise, Pocoloco vaulted to the top of the leaderboard. In the 6th stage, the racers would depart from Chicago, heading north. Johnny and Gyro would travel toward the shores of Lake Michigan to search for the Saint's ears.